All right, meanwhile, there are some breaking inputs that have come in of a plane crash at the Kathmandu airport. The Bangladesh aircraft has crashed at Kathmandu airport and several casualties are reported in this incident. So this is the latest bit of news that we are getting in. The information is yet to come in. There is reported to be a plane that has crashed at the Kathmandu airport. It is still not very clear as to how many people were in fact on board the flight at the time that the crash took place. We are awaiting more information on this story, but what we do know is that it was a Bangladeshi aircraft that has crashed at the Kathmandu airport and several casualties are in fact feared in this incident. So several casualties are feared in this particular incident that has taken place in the Kathmandu airport. A Bangladeshi aircraft is what we're given to understand is the one that has crashed at the Kathmandu airport. And more details, in fact, are awaited about what is in fact taking place at Kathmandu. And for more on this, I'm told that we are joined by Mr. Subhash Khimre, who's the editor of the Republica from Nepal. Mr. Khimre, what more details do we have on this incident? Mr. Subhash Khimre, if you can hear me, my question to you was, there is this plane crash that has been reported in the Kathmandu airport. What more information do we have on this incident?
Yes, we just got the report that this U.S. bombardier crashed. I think from the report that we have received, it just skid off from the runway and then it just blew up. The people who saw said it immediately skid off and then they saw huge smoke coming out from the plane.
All right, and do we know as to which plane this actually was? How many people were on board the flight? Do we have any information on that?
There have been varying reports. Some say there are around 70 to 78, some saying even 200. We have yet to verify that, but then around 24 people have been rescued from the crash site so far. That's the information that we have received as of now.
All right, and also, Mr. Khimre, from the some of the images that have in fact come up on social media, it says that there was a pretty big fire that has also erupted. Can we in fact confirm as to what exactly led to the crash? Do we have any information on that front?
We don't have the information yet. From the initial information that we got from our reporters, it was trying to land there and then it just took a short turn and then just couldn't land on the runway and then just skid off. That's the information that we have received so far, because the runway is a little bit shorter in the Kathmandu airport.
Fair enough.
So the planes had to slow down and then land in the airport.
All right. Do continue to stay on with us, Mr. Subhash Khimre. Meanwhile, I'm told that we're also joined in by Mr. Yuvraj Khimre, who's also a senior journalist. Mr. Yuvraj Khimre, what more information do we have on this story? All right, we seem to have lost the line with Mr. Yuvraj Khimre there. We'll try reconnect with him. Meanwhile, I'm told that we are joined by my colleague Sumit Chaturvedi. Sumit, what is the latest on this story? What exactly has happened in this case?
Well, the facts are still to come, Saleh, but if we look at the overall scenario, if the plane was coming from Bangladesh to Nepal, it was definitely a wide-bodied jet, or it could be a narrow-bodied jet also. But it could be one of these planes, A320, A321, or A319, or a Boeing 737. This means the passenger aircraft was quite big. Generally, in these crashes, it's hard for anyone to survive. We are just going by the kind of overall aircraft that fly on international route. So from Bangladesh to Nepal, it would be a distance of, we can say that 1,000 kilometers, and we can say that a narrow body would be flying on this route that generally have around 200 passengers. So 200 flyers would have been there, and if it crashed, definitely casualties could be higher. We are just awaiting for the factual details to emerge. But in the meantime, it's just pointing out to the facts. As far as aviation is concerned, it could be one 737 or A321 or A320, the same that flies in India.
Fair enough.
So this could have actually led to the casualties could be, yes, we can say that from 50 to 100, but nothing is confirmed so far.
Absolutely indeed. And Mr. Ghimre, if I could come back to you on this, it says that the crash in fact took place at Kathmandu airport. Was it at the time when it was trying to land that the plane crashed?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
My question to you was, the crash is reported to have taken place at the Kathmandu International Airport. Was it at the time of landing, when it was trying to land, that the crash took place?
This happened sometimes 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
So it's 3 here, so it's around 2:30, 2:45 local time here.
All right. And at this point of time, was it a human error? Was it a technical problem? Or was there a case of sabotage? I know it's early to speculate on that, but any information at all that we have got from the agencies there?
Well,
Mr. Ghimre, if you can hear me? All right, we seem to have lost the line with Mr. Subhash Ghimre. We'll try and reconnect him. Meanwhile, my colleague Sumit Chaturvedi is still with us. Sumit, the details of this incident are extremely sketchy. We do not even know as to which airlines this plane in fact belonged to at this part of the time. It is US Bangla Airlines is what is being reported in some areas. Do we have any information as to what has led to this crash?
On that so far, but the national carrier of Bangladesh is Biman Airlines, but it's not confirmed whether it was Biman Airlines plane or not. But yes, it could be said that because it was traveling on an international route, it was a large plane, would have been a large plane only. Also, Nepal is hub to big international carriers, including Singapore Airlines, because it's a big tourist hub also, because of which all big flights they come to, especially to Nepal. Also, Nepal has some tours specifically for Everest, where the aircraft they take off to show people the Everest from the skies. So that is also specialty, but definitely this was not that aircraft. It was coming from Bangladesh to Kathmandu. Definitely one thing which could have been the cause behind this is the technical fault. All right, and also because the plane was traveling from Bangladesh to Nepal, can we expect, it would be fair to say that a lot of the people on board the flight would be Nepalis? It's difficult to say, Saleh, at this moment, on all these people who were on board the aircraft. All right, and also, Sumit, have the authorities in Nepal, have they spoken at all in terms of what may have happened, in terms of what could have led to the crash? Have you got any information at all from the Nepalese authorities on this incident? It's too early on that account, Saleh, but yes, ATC, the tower communication would have to be read to look into the causes, the real causes. Later on, the black box data could also emerge and tell what was the reason behind this crash. But at this moment, nothing has emerged on that account. Right, and also, Sumit, some of the information that is coming in from the social media says that there was an issue with turbulence. The plane looked a little uncertain while it was coming down to land. Is it the weather conditions in Kathmandu, considering the terrain that Kathmandu is in, is that something that makes flying and landing a little difficult? One thing would be the servicing or the maintenance of the aircraft, because in the past, in few crashes, what emerged was the overall, we can say that the maintenance could have been a big issue. But Saleh, I would like to bring forward a point here that Kathmandu airport is known as one of the very dangerous airport in the world. The landing on Kathmandu airport is not an easy job. Many airports in the world are considered very tricky, and Kathmandu airports, the Tribhuvan International Airport, has been one of the trickiest airport to land an aircraft, and here it could have also played its part when it comes to crashing an aircraft. So this is Kathmandu airport is not one of the very easy airports. It is one of the trickiest airports to land a plane.
Talk about landing an aircraft, or when we talk about hard landing, generally there are distress calls. This has come as a news in the sense that even the airport authorities and other was taken in by the episode or the event. So was there any, as per your sources or the information which is there available with us in the newsroom, was there any distress call? And since you're aware of the subjects, in case the plane is in distress, at the time of landing, what are the protocols it follows, Sumit?
Well, that's definitely, it depends on what kind of emergency is there. But generally, overall, an SOS is made to ATC tower. But the point here I was bringing, Kartikeya, was that the Tribhuvan International Airport is known as one of the trickiest airports in the world to land an aircraft. That's what could have been one of the major, big reasons for the aircraft to land, because it's not easy to land on that Tribhuvan International Airport. Also, all big airlines go to that airport. That means that the plane from Bangladesh was coming to Nepal, and it could have been a big plane like A320, A321 or B737 that generally has capacity to seat over 200 people or 200 passengers. That points to the fact that the casualties could go bigger from here. But yes, generally a distress call is made to ATC tower, but they can't do anything big with it because the people who are inside the aircraft are the people who are managing the aircraft. At the most, ATC could send the fire tenders, they could send things at ground to manage the emergency situation better. But overall, it's the job of the pilot and the co-pilot to handle everything instantly within that, we can say that, aircraft.
Sumit, has it happened around the area adjoining the airport, or is the actual the airport complex where the plane has landed?
Well, it looks like it is near the airport, near the runway, and the plane hasn't been able to land.
Plane has landed.
Well, it looks like it is near the airport, near the runway, and the plane hasn't been able to land on runway properly, because the initial pictures that are emerging are showing the aircraft are parked on one side of the runway, which means that the other side of the runway, their smoke is coming out, which means that on the other corner of the runway, it points to the fact that aircraft couldn't land on the runway and crashed. Remember, the trickiest part in the flight is not takeoff. It's always the landing, and that's why 90% of the crashes that happen while landing, because takeoff is very easy. Autopilot takes over after the aircraft gets on board. But when it lands, then only the skill of a pilot comes into picture. There where they have to really bring their human intelligence and use that human intelligence to land that aircraft. And it looks like it's a human error that has led to maybe aircraft not landing on the runway and then skidding off and maybe crashing somewhere.
Sumit, this is in Dhaka. This is a Bangladeshi passenger aircraft. Is there any idea about the size of the aircraft as to when it did take off? Where was this plane coming from? Any information in that context, Sumit?
Well, it's not clear, but generally, Kartikeya, of the global routes, the big either wide body jets, they come and land, or narrow body like A320, A321, they also are used. In this case, it looks like, because Biman Airways, if it is belonging to Biman Airways, which is Bangladesh national carrier, they do not have bigger fleet of aircraft. But it was coming to Nepal, which means that it was either A320, A321 or A319, which is a narrow body jet of Airbus, or it could have been Boeing 737, which is again a narrow body jet of Boeing. So one of these two aircraft, if it was that aircraft, definitely it had capacity to seat around 100 to 150 people or passengers. And generally in these situations, the casualties are high, because once the aircraft crashes, it's very difficult for anybody to survive.
Before I let go of you, the larger issue here is that this tragedy has taken place. India has also seen tragedy. For example, one which took place in Bangalore, where it skidded because of the high gale winds, and the pilot was unable to gauge that the runway is short, and then the plane started to skid. So right now, there is no confirmation in context of as to what happened there.
Well, absolutely, because it's a matter of...
Sumit, I would just like you to hold your thought for a minute. I'm also joined by Mr. Anil Giri from Kathmandu Post. Thank you, Mr. Giri, for joining us on WION. What's the latest from the Kathmandu airport? Is there any word on how this accident took place, sir?
Basically, the rescue operation is going on in the airport right now, okay? And there is no report of the casualties of the people. The airport authorities have said that at least 14 people have been rescued from the accident site. Okay, so there is a huge flame. There is a huge flame of fire. There is a smoke. Is there. So the rescue operation is going on. It is said that there were 69 passengers on board in the plane, and the plane was in an accident while descending in the Kathmandu airport.
So, sir, you are saying that this plane had 69 passengers and 14 people have been rescued?
Yes, so far.
14 people have been rescued so far. Sir, any word on as to
Yes.
where did the plane crash land, sir? Is it actually inside the airport perimeter, sir, or outside the Kathmandu airport perimeter, sir?
No, it is very much in the airport. It is very much in the Kathmandu airport, in the runway. The plane skid up from the runway and went outside the runway, and it went to somewhere to the near the settlement. There is a huge flame smoke coming out from the from the airline. So and people are there are videos sent by local people that there is a huge smoke, and and the airport authorities were running to rescue the plane. Now the fire has been doused, and the passengers who were inside the plane has been taken out. Okay, so now the situation is under control, but the casualties is yet to be known. So how many people were there, or how many is there any dead or not, or how many injured. So the details has not been confirmed by the airport authorities, but there is an accident, and it is a very within a airport runway. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sir. I'm also joined by Coach Raj Koirala, a senior journalist from Kathmandu. Mr. Koirala, what is the latest on the accident which has taken place at the Kathmandu airport, sir?
Yes, we are told that firefighters are still dousing the fire and they're trying to rescue some of the people, and we were told 14 people were rescued, but still we don't know. We just could not confirm this through Civil Aviation Authority. So far they're trying to douse the fire and trying to rescue, and still not clear because I tried to talk to Civil Aviation officials, but they were not available to make comments. But so far what we learned is 71 people were there on board. So the aircraft actually skidded off the runway when it was landing in the Kathmandu airport. So this is the detail, and I'm just trying to get further detail about this.
So the reports are coming in that the plane landed on the runway but skidded and then hit certain structures, and that's how the accident has taken place. Is that correct, sir?
We are told that it skidded off the runway in the eastern side, and it also produced loud noise, and it started the flame of fire could be seen. So immediately, the rescue personnel who were there in the Tribhuvan International Airport, they just reached there and they tried to douse the fire. And actually, we are not. It's not clear whether it hit any structure because there was no structure as such in the runway because the plane had actually landed in the runway itself. But when it landed, it just skidded off the road, the tarmac in the eastern side.
Mr. Koirala, just stay with me. These are the first visuals. These are amateur visuals, but at a time taken when the plane crashed at the Kathmandu airport. So these are you have a little jerk here and there, but these are amateur visuals at the time when the crash took place, and there was a panic. So the people were running away from where the crash took place. Basically, the premise was being evacuated. It was being clear so that it can be sanitized for further actions. Yes, Mr. Koirala, at what time exactly did this accident take place?
Okay. I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
I'm saying at what time did this accident take place?
I will get all the details after some time.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Koirala. So, Sumit, two things are very clear. Apart from the visuals which we are playing, the plane had 69 people apart from the crew, which means that roughly 70 plus people were there on the plane. Second thing, both the journalists we spoke to from Kathmandu said 14 people have been rescued, and Sumit, one of them also said that the plane landed, but then eventually was not able to maintain itself and skid, went off the runway, and that's how the accident took place. Sumit.
Well, absolutely. The reports are emerging that it was a Bombardier's Q400 aircraft. It's definitely a smaller aircraft as compared to the bigger narrow body we generally see. But it has a seating capacity of 75 people. So we can, the casualties could be around 50. That's what we can say. And as it happened at Kathmandu airport, which is one of the trickiest airports to land an aircraft in the whole world, yes, it skidded off the runway and crashed in a football field. That's what the reports are saying that it couldn't land on the runway and it crashed in a football field. That's the reports are coming at this moment. So it could be, one of the big, we can say, the crashes of the whole year. It was an aircraft coming from Bangladesh to Nepal, and there could be errors on any side, Nepal ATC side also, or the Bangladesh plane side also, because these aircraft need regular maintenance, and any problem, it may be pertaining to the wheel doesn't coming off or anything else. It can lead to a fatal crash, and that's what happened in this case. It looks
just
like.
hold a thought. Mahavi Potyal, a political commentator and journalist at the Republica Daily, also joins me. So, what is the latest on the accident which has taken place at the Nepal airport, sir?
Various reports are coming. There are reports that the journalists have not been allowed entry inside the TIA, and they are reporting from outside. And a few minutes ago, we received news that around 14 passengers have been rescued and they have been taken to the hospital. And then again, there are some reports on social media that some 50 people could have been dead. So a lot of details are emerging. Nothing can be said about it right now. The journalists are collecting news from the site, and it's still a confusing situation out here.
So this accident took place at 2:20 p.m. The DS Bangla, the plane which crash landed. So any news on people who have been saved, evacuated from the site? Any data on those who have been able to survive it, sir?
The eyewitnesses have been reported as saying that they heard the big explosion, and there is plumes of smoke coming out from the crash site. And like I said, a lot of details are yet to emerge. Reports are coming out, but we can only say that there were around 67 passengers on board, and then some of them have been rescued and taken to the hospital. And there are also reports of some people, some 45, 50 people, dying at the crash site. So I think we have to wait until the complete reports come out.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Latest for Sumit, what's happening is there's a statement which has come from Tribhuvan International Airport, Kathmandu. The spokesperson of Tribhuvan International Airport, Premnath Thakur, he has said, Sumit, categorically, we'll try to get in touch with Premnath Thakur directly, Sumit, so that both of us can speak to him. He has said that the aircraft caught fire after it careened off the runway during landing. It says it crashed onto a football ground near TIA. The aircraft's call sign was STAGU, and it took off from Dhaka and landed at TIA 2:20 p.m. Now, it also said that at the time of landing, technical glitches were reported. And Sumit, this did not have jet engines. This aircraft was a propeller-driven one. It had propellers.
Well, absolutely. This is Q400 Bombardier. It's a smaller aircraft. When we go from Delhi to nearby areas, if we say, let's say Jaipur or maybe sometimes Chandigarh, yes, we do use these smaller airplanes which have a seating capacity of, we can say that 50 to 60 passengers. And they're quite popular, especially in the mountain regions, and especially with these countries, the smaller countries and areas, they are used quite often. So one of the reasons, as we can figure out, could be the problem in landing. And these aircraft, especially when they don't have jet engines, they have propellers, and that to single ones, they are very prone to the changes in the wind, and they can get impacted by the changes in the wind.
Just hold on, these are the latest visuals which are coming from Kathmandu airport. These are the latest visuals where the plane had crash landed. It has completely ruptured, and as you were very rightly pointed out, this was a propeller-driven plane. It's not a jet. It's not a jet. and it has a basic seating capacity of roughly 75, and its call sign was STS2AGU. That was the call sign of the plane. So when does when there's a problem in terms of landing, isn't there a protocol to shed off fuel, or do you feel that in this case that the plane did not have the time to shed off fuel?
Well, no, it's not possible because, again, Karthikeya, we're talking about very advanced aircraft, and this particularly is used for short duration or short, we can say that, journeys. This particular aircraft was coming from Bangladesh to Kathmandu, and Q400 is the one that is known for having seating capacity of less than 70 people. Here they are much prone to overall climate, overall winds, and that's what leads to these kind of aircraft crashing down. To me, it looks like it coming from Bangladesh to Nepal. It was a bit overstretched journey for this aircraft. Though these aircraft can make these journeys, generally in those circumstances, bigger planes are better. So definitely in Kathmandu airport, which is one of the trickiest airports to land, it could have been a pilot's fault, it could have been an ATC miscommunication, but it happened, and more casualties are feared in this case, because as we can see from the visuals, it looks very difficult somebody would have survived in these circumstances. But yes, they have rescued 14 people, which is in a way, we can say that miracle in those circumstances, because when a plane crashes, there's a we can say that the overall fire which engulfs the overall aircraft. In these circumstances, if somebody has been rescued, it's a miracle. But the casualties could be high because the plane was seating around 50 to 70 people, and rest of people would have died, it looks like, but reports are still to confirm it.
You're saying this because of the fire, the explosion which has taken place?
Well, absolutely. Remember, Karthikeya, ATF is a different kind of fuel. Aviation turbine fuel is very highly combustible fuel, and ATF is used in these aircraft, which actually, in a way, we can say that leads to these kind of big casualties in such cases.
But in this case, it's now very, very clear that the plane landed, and then some are saying it landed on the runway and skidded. Some are saying that it could not land on the runway, and it actually touched base on a football field, and that's how it broke into pieces. Because for something to happen on a runway like this is a different thing, unless it's a very hard landing. But in context of the accidents which takes place like these, Sumit, there are two things. One is a human error, and another is a technical error. In this case, technical error has been reported.
Well, absolutely. Also, if we look a bit into the kind of aircraft these countries use, they are generally refurbished aircraft. They are bought from different parts of the world where they are, we can say that, second-hand aircraft also. Remember, the overall airlines in these countries are not big airlines. They're supported by certain, tourism-related things. So sometimes, if not maintained properly, they can really can result in this kind of disaster. Remember, in Delhi also, few months ago, a BSF plane also crashed. So these small planes have to be maintained properly, otherwise they can result into this kind of things which happened today. And if you can see from the visuals, the aircraft has not broken into two pieces, which happens in many cases. So it looks like it has crashed, and after that it caught fire, but it hasn't broken into two pieces, we can say that. And that would have been the reason why maybe the front-sided people, they survived, and the back-sided people, they died, or the front-sided people, they died, and the back people survived. So this could be the case.
Basically, the point you are trying to make is that the people who are sitting in the front, they would survive because the fuel is stored in the wings and below the wings. That's where the belly is. But unfortunate part is that's the strongest. It's supposed to be the strongest part of the plane,
hull.
But the hull, yes, and the latter part is not that strong. But with the wind and the gust, and since the movement of the fuel in context of the wind, and the speed must be backwards, the other people would have. But why are you saying that Kathmandu is a difficult airport? Are you comparing it with airports like Bangalore or short runway airports like Jammu? Is it like a short runway, or is it because the approach is problematic?
Well, absolutely. The Bangalore airport was a tabletop airport, and it had a very, we can say that, limited runway. Same happens here, and also, Karthikeya, one thing that is to be kept in mind is the wind speed. Here, the wind speed are very, very fast. That's why the pilots, when they land the aircraft, they have to keep in mind the tailwind in these cases. So in these circumstances, it's difficult to land an aircraft exactly on the runway. Here, Kathmandu airport, as we know that Nepal is a country where there are mountains. The overall winds are very fast, and specifically in this if we can say that this is a Q400 Bombardier, they fly very low in the space. Like they can go achieve a maximum height of 14,000 feet. The aircraft which we fly in generally, they fly the height of around 25,000 to 30,000 feet. That's why these aircraft are flown at a lower altitude, because they can't travel farther.
I think that's a very important point, Sumit. What is the height these aircrafts fly at, the propeller, and what must have been the distance between Delhi and Kathmandu? The point you're trying to make is that generally these propellers aren't used.
Well, absolutely, Kartik. These ATRs or these small Q400s are smaller planes. They are used for very short distance travel, and they cannot fly farther without refueling, first, second, and second, they don't have support engines as well. This also happened in this case. There was no support engine here also.
So which means that the failure of a single engine can destabilize an aircraft. It's not like those modern, the huge, obviously, jetliners, there is no comparison, that even if one engine fails, it can fly over Atlantic with one. You're talking about that?
Well, absolutely. And if we define the shape of this aircraft particular, their engines are not caged as well. So they are prone to bird hit also, because the engines and the wings are not caged in certain, we can say that, boxes. They are much prone to bird hit. Bird hit could be one of the reasons as well. So there are 100 reasons because of which an aircraft can crash. In this case, the details will emerge only after a proper, we can say that, investigation is done. The black box recorders are found, which are at the back of an aircraft, and the ATC communication will also come into picture. Only after that, a certain, we can say that we can reach on a conclusion whether this was the reason of the pilot error was the reason or technical error was the reason.
So basically, what are the precautions? What are the protocols when a crash inside an airport takes place? What happens from there on? Once the crash takes place.
Well, absolutely, and here we are talking about Nepal International, the Tribhuvan International Airport. Definitely, it's not one of those high-class airport which we can't compare it to the airport like those in Gulf, the Dubai International Airport, or we can say that in US. These are the big airports which are capable of handling much higher traffic at same point of time and are equipped very well when it comes to communication also. Remember, nowadays, aircraft technology is not limited to human, we can say that human flying. Human flying is just a part of it. And remember, as I said before, human skills are needed the most when an aircraft lands. Taking off is not a big issue. Flying is not a big issue. It's the landing that takes the much part of the human skills. And here, when there's a failure, even small failure can lead to big fatal crashes. And this could have happened in this case also if the pilot is not able to gauge the overall runway length or is not able to see things properly. Well, this is not, luckily this is not a fog season, because when the fog season is there are more chances that an aircraft can crash. Luckily, this was not a fog season, but Tribhuvan International Airport is also one of the airports which are known for their old kind of communication system, ATC tower, radars and all. That could have been reason also. So, but all these details will emerge only after a proper investigation is done. Remember, MH370, the Malaysian carrier, that it's been 5 years, it hasn't been found. So the authorities are sometimes not able to find the real cause behind these crashes also.
So basically, if you look at the visuals, Sumit, it's very, very clear that it did not land on the runway. It landed beyond the runway. It has landed on a very uneven field. And if we have to describe the scene of the accident, as you rightly said, that the plane has not broken, it has been destroyed by fire. It has been destroyed by the impact, and it also goes on to show that it has got mangled. The wings are completely broken by the impact, because if you look at the engines, they are lying at separate positions, different places, and I think if you look at these visuals, most of these survivors have been taken out. But then the sort of impact, it's a truly horrific, very, very tragic incident. But this also has learning curves, that, as you were rightly pointed out, that these aircrafts, ATRs, should only be used for short hauls. Sometimes countries purchase old ATRs and put them on long routes.
Well, absolutely. In fact, Nepal is known for, the more of the tourism kind of aviation also. Remember, there are chartered flights that go to Nepal.
Sorry, Sumit, sorry, I'll just get back to you in 2 minutes. And I'm also joined by Sarat Kaul, aviation expert. Sir, your first comments on the accident which has taken place at the Kathmandu airport, sir. Mr. Kaul?
Yes.
Sir, your first comments on the accident which has taken place in Kathmandu.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm saying your first comments on the accident which has taken place at the Kathmandu airport.
Well, it's very unfortunate that this happened. And, one didn't expect this in Kathmandu. Maybe Pokhara and other places are more dangerous. But still, Kathmandu is a hill airfield, although not as bad as some others. For example, the Mangalore air crash which took place was a more dangerous airfield. So why it has happened, what was the weather like, we are still not very clear on these issues. And once we get to know, I think the comments should be then finally made. That is my first reaction, because one is really not fully aware of all these things which happened. But if you can brief us, it'll be good.
So, what is being reported is that it's a US-Bangla aircraft, and it's it had 70 passengers, 70 passengers. It crash landed at 2:20 at the Tribhuvan International Airport, and though the spokesperson says that it got careened off the runway, but if you look at the visuals, it's far from the runway. It's actually on the grassland, and the plane has been completely mangled by the impact. So, but why were you saying, sir, that Kathmandu is a difficult airport? Slightly less difficult.
As I said, I was saying Mangalore, like a Mangalore, it's a hill area, it's a valley airport. Definitely it goes into a valley. You don't know what the weather conditions, what the wind conditions are like. But considering that it's a valley airport, it's not all that bad either.
Okay.
I compared it to Mangalore, where the last air crash took place of the Air India flight. It was a table airport. It was a very poor quality airport because the logistics were very bad. But this place is much better.
You're saying that this place is much better. But sir, in context of we were discussing with my colleague, he covers aviation, Sumit. Sumit, do you have any questions for Mr. Kaul, sir?
So, Mr. Kaul, I would like to ask you first of all that definitely this was a Q400. Do you generally see the Q400s being flown between the countries before? Because it's very difficult for Q400s to cover that overall space or area between the two countries.
What is the word you're using, Q400?
So, what I'm asking is that from Bangladesh to Nepal, do we generally use these Q400s small aircraft for this kind of overall?
Q400 is okay. What's wrong with it? Q400 aircraft is a properly certified aircraft.
Absolutely, but it's not a proper twin-engine aircraft which is generally used between two spaces or two. Generally, we have seen them flying from small distances.
As far as I know, Q400 is a twin-engine aircraft. It's not a single-engine aircraft.
But it's a propeller-used aircraft and not a jet engine.
Propeller is okay. That's not an issue. Propeller and jet propulsion are two different, engines. I've been on helicopters and all into valleys in Arunachal Pradesh and all. They're fine. It's all a question of what is the weather like. Was there a warning? Did they go against the warning? What happened?
So you're saying weather could be a big factor here, which would have played the overall role.
Jet engines are more powerful than propeller engines, but propeller engines also work. There's no problem with it.
Okay, in this case, specifically in this case, what according to you could be the reasons for this? Definitely the more details will come later, but what according to you could be the...
It won't be proper to, make speculative assessment just now, because one doesn't know one hasn't heard or, too much about this accident. So it'd be unnecessary speculation.
Well, absolutely, I agree with that, Mr. Kaul. I agree with that,
and it's
Mr.
a serious issue when people have died and all. One should not, unnecessarily go and make accusations about something or the other when one doesn't know the full details.
All right, Mr. Kaul, thank you.
And then they will, find out what was wrong, what went wrong.
Sure, Mr. Kaul. Thank you for talking to us.
It's very unfortunate that it happened, and it was it was in daylight, so we don't know what the So we'll get to know soon what are the realities.
All right, Mr. Kaul, I would toss back to my colleague Karthikeya.
Sumit, I think he made a very relevant point that, this has happened in the daytime. And yes, there are airports like tabletop airports like Mangalore, which are very, very difficult in the tragedy which last time took place. When the pilot last minute realized that he has overshot the runway, tried to take it off, but then completely scared off the runway. And the people who were thrown outside were thrown out by the pressure of the impact were saved. And unfortunately, those who were inside actually could not be rescued because the plane burst into flames, because when it landed it was full of fuel. And even if you look at this plane, it has almost turned turtle,
Well, absolutely. I would like to point out something here, Karthikeya. Over the last few weeks, we have seen big crashes happening. One happened in Iran that led to, death of more than 60 people. One happened in Russia also. That was also what led to this crash. That is not clear, but it killed 164 people. Here also, Nepal. We are seeing the conclusion I can draw here is that all these planes they were either going to the countries where the air safety systems are not they're not very advanced. Russia, Iran and Nepal, the air safety system the overall systems are not developed that much. Overall, in the other, Western countries or Gulf countries, the systems are much advanced. The advancement has taken place over the last one and a half decade, and that has to be kept in mind before any conclusion is drawn here. But yes, comparison we can draw here is that it happened in Nepal, Iran and Russia, and the air systems are not very trustworthy there, that I can say.
So you're basically saying that the air systems are not very, very trustworthy. But then it's nonetheless, thank you, Sumit, for being with me. Nonetheless, it's a very tragic incident which has taken place, and there's no numbers to the people who have survived the crash. But the fact of the matter is that 14 people have been evacuated from the aircraft. One does not know what has happened to other people, but this took place at 2:20, somewhere around 2:20 p.m. today, and the spokesperson of the Tribhuvan International Airport said that the plane was not able to make it to the runway properly, and then it was on the football field where it burst into flame. And these are the latest visual pictures which we just showed you when the plane crash landed. These are post the crash. There are a couple of photographs which we showed you at a point of time when the plane had landed, it had burst into flames, which means that the plane was not able to keep the structural integrity. The fuel must have flown outside. As Sumit was saying, my colleague, that it's a highly inflammable fuel, it's called ATF. It must have caught fire, and once the plane catches fire, the material which itself is used in the plane, despite being non-inflammable, catches fire for the fact that the fuel which is used for flying is of a different variety, and and you could see the plume of the smoke, how strong the impact must have been. So right now the operations are on to clear the area. We do not know whether other flights are being allowed to land at the Tribhuvan International Airport. The protocol is once the accident takes place, every inch of runway is sanitized, every inch of adjoining strip is sanitized, and then it happens. And yes, even if you look at even within the perimeter, the plane maybe could not make it to the runway and must have landed alongside. And you can see there are houses next to the plane, which means that it was pretty far off the mark, Sumit, isn't it? If you look at these houses, they can't be part of the runway.
It was definitely much away from the runway. It couldn't land on runway. It was not even at the path of the runway. And as we pointed out, the particular Tribhuvan International Airport is one of the trickiest airports to land an aircraft, and the wind blows there maximum part of the day. It's a mountainous region, and for pilots, such winds are, a nightmare. They can't really land an aircraft in such high velocity wind, especially, this aircraft was a smaller one, and it differs from a plane to plane whether they can withstand the speed of wind here or not. This plane was particularly, I can say that with confidence, was prone to these kind of winds. Sometimes winds take the plane away from runway, and that can be also one reason why the planes crash. One thing also that happens in most of the crashes, ultimately, till the end moment, in many cases, the reason doesn't come out so easily. Remember MH370 that happened 5 years ago. Nobody has been able to find that MH370, the Malaysian Airlines aircraft, is still a mystery. Nobody has been able to found the remains of MH370, where it went. Nobody knows. Thereafter, a plane which was flying back to a Malaysian airline plane that was flying over Uzbekistan was brought down by a Stinger missile, and that was also one of the incidents that happened for the first time in the history of the overall aviation, that a terrorist, they brought down an aircraft. So the reasons could be any, but unless and until a proper investigation is done, the reasons don't come out so easily. In Mangalore case, the reasons were attributed to the airport, which was a tabletop airport, and it was difficult for pilots to land on that airport. And there, the conclusion was drawn from the black box recorders where the communications are stored, and the communications, when they were heard, it was clear that the pilots could not land the aircraft on that tabletop airport. Here, things will emerge, but they will emerge very late. But yes, one thing is quite certain: in the countries like Nepal, the communication system of the airport is not very advanced. Definitely, Tribhuvan International Airport is not one of the most advanced airport. That we can say about Delhi and Mumbai Airport, which have been privatized over the last 4 to 5 years. There, the overall communication system, the runways, the light system, everything is quite advanced. Tribhuvan International Airports, or if we go to the other airports in the far-flung areas, the maintenance has to be very, very, very perfect. Here, anything could be any reason could be behind the crash. The wind, the problem with the pilot, or miscommunication with the ATC. Any reason could have led to this kind of crash which we witnessed today.
Sumit, just stay with me while we are watching these distressing visuals of an air crash in Kathmandu of a passenger plane belonging to US Bangla Airline. Let's take a look at the relatively new aviation company that was set up in 2010. It commenced operations in 2014, that is just 4 years ago, and currently has 8 operational aircrafts. The private company, which is US Bangladesh joint venture, started with 2 domestic destinations, Chittagong and Jessore. From its hub in Dhaka 2 years ago, US Bangla Airlines announced its purchase of 2 Boeing 737-800 aircrafts, and also its intention to touch international routes, beginning with Singapore and Dubai. It also planned to buy 2 Airbus A330 aircraft to begin operations for Hajj pilgrims to Jeddah and Riyadh. It currently flies to 15 destinations, and other than Kathmandu, US Bangla Airlines also flies to Kolkata, Kuala Lumpur, Doha, Singapore, Bangkok, Muscat and Qatar. US Bangla Airlines currently owns 8 aircraft, 4 Boeing 737-800s, which can each carry 158 passengers, for 4 Bombardiers Q400 planes, which can ferry 76 passengers on board. And today's Kathmandu crash is not the first. In 2015, when the airliners Bombardier skidded off the runway upon landing on a domestic flight within Bangladesh, none was injured.